Student, today we are going to discuss translation, and in this translation we will start with deciphering genetic code. So we'll start by an overview of gene expression. We will consider translation. We will consider in this chapter the translation, the mRNA directed biosynthesis of polypeptide. Although peptide bond formation is a relatively simple chemical reaction, the complexity of the translation process, which involves the coordinated participation of over 100 macromolecules, is mandated by the need to link 20 different amino acid residues accurately in the order specified by a particular mRNA. So this is the thing we are going to study. So we begin our discussion that is the genetic code, the correspondence between nucleic acid sequence and polypeptide sequence. Next, we will examine the structure and properties of tRNAs, amino acid bearing entities that mediate between the DNA, mRNA, and the protein. Okay, so if you see this slide correctly, then you will see we have started with the central dogma of life, that is DNA to mRNA and mRNA to polypeptide. So the DNA to mRNA synthesis is transcription and mRNA to protein synthesis is translation. So if you see, this purple color is the coding strand, template strand, and the red color is the mRNA. And that what is written, the information what is written in the nucleotide language, how that information is translated in the letter 20 amino acids word, that we are going to study in this chapter. Now look this one. A DNA based sequence might specify an amino acid sequence in many conceivable way. That means this is kind of, we know that there are 4 nucleotides, we know that there are 20 amino acids. Now how do nucleic acid composed of 4 nucleotides specify the synthesis of protein composed of 20 different amino acids? Now how it is happening, that means how many RNA bases specify one amino acid? That is our question here. There are 4 different nucleotides which is present in the mRNA sequence. Now, if we correspond 1 base, 1 amino acid, that means 4 to the power 1, that means only 4 amino acid can be recognized by this. Now, taking 2 base, that means 4 square, 2 base at a time, we can get the combination of maximum 16 unique code word, but that is also not enough. Our amino acids are 20. Now take triple code, that means if you take 3 nucleotide at a time, that means 4 to the power 3, and therefore we can get 64 such combination. So our amino acids are 20. If we take 2, that is 16, take 3, it is 64. But if we take 4 to the power 4, that means 4 in a combination, that would give 256. Always remember, nature never doesn't waste its any energy or resource, so that may not be possible. So it is definitely 64 and that region. That's the first hint that genetic code is the triplet one. Now to understand this deciphering of genetic code, we need to first understand all this experiment, whatever scientists have done to decipher the genetic code, everything they have done in vitro. Now, what is an in vitro tool for doing the protein synthesis? The concept is it's named as cell-free protein synthesis system. What is a cell-free system? It is an in vitro, remember, this is an in vitro tool widely used to study biological reaction that happen within cells apart from a full cell system. That means I'm not taking a full cell. We generally break gently the outer membrane or the cell wall, and we centrifuge that system and take the soup that we consider as a cell-free system, thus reducing the complex interaction typically found when working in a whole cell. So this is not a whole cell. We are taking the cell soup, gently breaking its membrane. So that soup, when we are taking, that is our system where we are going to perform all the in vitro studies. Subcellular fraction can be isolated by ultracentrifugation to provide molecular machinery that can be used in reactions in the absence of many of the other cellular components. We'll see, I will show you. Eukaryotic and prokaryotic cell internal have been used for creation of this simplified environment. These systems have enabled cell-free synthetic biology to emerge, providing control over what reaction is being examined as well as its yield and lessening the consideration otherwise invoked when working with more sensitive live cell. To make our complex life simple, I want to mention that this is an in vitro system where we are performing all this translation experiment. What is the system? We need to gently break the cell membrane, if the plant cell wall, and take the soup, and the soup will contain all the cytoplasmic material. That means all your endogenous DNA, RNA, all the even amino acid, tRNA, ribosomes, all the machineries are present inside. Only thing you may need to provide from outside some extra energetic the compound like ATP, GTP that you need to provide to enhance the reaction. Now this simple cartoon will explain you what is cell-free protein synthesis. What I'm showing here, a culture they have taken the cells, they lyse the cell gently so that the membrane only can break. So they centrifuge it. After that they CFPS, meaning cell-free protein synthesis, and that can be incubated with your given template. So now when I'm talking about the cell-free system, I'm talking that it's only the membrane we have gently removed. We have taken the soup. Now inside the soup, as I mentioned, that there is DNA, RNA or indigenous components are present. Now if you want to examine another synthetically prepared your RNA or template, that you can incubate with that system. To avoid any interaction between the indigenous DNA and the external what you wanted to study, you can generally scientists treat this soup with DNAs to destroy all the indigenous nucleic acids, and then that can be used to study the synthetically developed template sequence. Now here, what are the common very much popular cell-free systems are present to study any prokaryotic system, cell-free protein production in E. coli cell. That's a very common. If you wanted to study plant cell line or that type of cells, so the production of wheat germ, these are the very highly growing cells. So cell-free production in wheat germ is a popular system. Cell-free protein production in rabbit reticulocyte. Why reticulocyte? Reticulocyte is an immature, if you remember, blood cells. So it doesn't have the nucleus. So no, only the protein synthesis taking place, and that to hemoglobin. So if you treat with proper you want to study, you can take that thing as a your model. And then cell-free protein production in baculovirus. So depends on what system, whether eukaryotic, prokaryotic, viral, you want to study, any one of these you can choose. Now what is happening? You have taken the cell extract, you can incubate the substrate as I just mentioned. If you want to study your own template, you need to destroy the cell's own DNA nucleic acid sequence. So incubate with the DNAs, it will chew up all the indigenous DNA. Then you can incubate with your substrate, and that produce the mRNA and the protein production. Now with this thing we will start what are the experiments scientists have performed to decipher the genetic code. The first thing The first hint I have given that at it, if you take 3 nucleotide, then the combinations are 64. That is just a hint that genetic codon may be a triplet. But how, what is the evidence of genetic codes that they are triplet? It came from the study of Francis Crick and Sidney Barner in 1961. They are working with a bacteriophage T4 and they are generating different type of mutant of that T4 bacteriophage, particularly in one gene region of the bacteriophage that named as R2 segment. Okay, this phage has a typical thing. If there is a mutation there which are unable to grow on E. coli strain K, that they knew that time. Now when they are performing some experiment, mutational study they are doing, what they found that they are doing some mutagen study with some that called proflavin, acridine, this type of dye, which are actually an intercalating reagent, which actually go inside and sometimes causes insertion deletion mutation study they are doing. So one mutagen that produced interesting result was proflavin and acridine. This compound looks very much like a DNA base pair and is able to intercalate, just I mentioned, into DNA. Proflavin causes error in DNA replication, producing variants that have added or deleted bases. So these are the observation that if you incubate the T4 bacteriophage, particularly in that gene, that region they are doing, they are getting different type of phage strand where they have either an insertion mutation or a deletion mutation. This story start with the proflavin induced R2 allele, which is they named as FCO. Okay, this mutant, like all R2 mutant, is unable to grow on strain K. Now see a very simplified version of that R2 gene here represented as ABC. Now the wild type sequence, they have written a triple code. If it is a triple code, then ABC, 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 ABC. Now that need to be maintained properly. The frame should maintain properly. So if there is wild type, there is no mutation. So the phenotype of R2 gene is correct. That means plus. That's why. Now FCO mutant, meaning they already mentioned there is an insertion. So the green A is the insertion here. So first codon was if it is triplet, so ABC. Then one extra A has added, so another AAB. Now complete sequence frame get disturbed. You can see it. So this is a mutation takes place, and that is R minus. So this is not plus. That there is a phenotypical change. Now what they found? They found that if a suppression, meaning I have added one base here, if I delete one base next to that, they actually restore, even though this is a plus minus meaning base addition, base deletion, plus meaning minus meaning. So they restore the phenotype if they change it. Now 2 base addition if they do in anywhere, this is again negative. That means Rh phenotype we are not getting back. But if it is the 3 base addition, any part, they are getting the other sequence, that frame ABC, 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 the frame is correct. So this study, not only the addition, this is also observed that deletion of 3 bases can also restore the phenotype, that is R2, that phenotype positive. That means it is correct phenotype. So insertion of 3 base as well as deletion of 3 base restore the phenotype of R2 gene, give an idea to Francis Crick to postulate that genetic code is a triplet. Now once this is done, then the characteristics of genetic code. Now important features of the genetic code include each codon consists of 3 bases. So the hint was 4 to the power 3, that means 64. So if it is each codon consists of 3 bases, triplet, therefore there are 64 such codons should be present. They are all written in the 5' to 3' direction. 61 codons code for amino acid. The other three, we will show you how all this thing has happened. UAA, UGA, UAG are stop codon. That means that terminate translation. There is one start codon, initiation codon, AUG. In some cases, rare cases, GUG also present, coding for methionine. Protein synthesis begin with methionine in eukaryotes and formyl methionine FMET in prokaryotes. The code is unambiguous. Each codon specifies no more than one amino acid. The code is degenerate. More than one codon can specify a single amino acid. All amino acids except methionine and tryptophan have more than one codon. For those amino acids having more than one codon, the first two bases in the codon are usually the same. The base in the third position often varies. These are all points you need to remember, where we will be clarifying each thing in later discussion. The code is almost universal, the same in all organisms. Some exceptions are there. Some mitochondrial DNA as well as some other organisms DNA, there are a little bit codon ambiguities there. The code is commaless, that there is no space or comma between the codon, and neighboring codons on a message are non-overlapping. So these are the specific features, characteristic of genetic code. Now, as I just finished here by saying non-overlapping. Now, if it is overlapping, how you can think that what actually the triplet, meaning these three you can visualize. So this is middle line, we will see this is the codon AUU, GCU, CAG, like that three letter we are reading. Now if it is overlapping, then how we are going to read it? Then AUU first, then taking the second U, we can again construct UUG, correct? UUG. Take the third U, then UGC. Like this is the way, if it is the overlapping, we can read it. We should read it like that. But if it is not overlapping, then AUU should be AUU corresponding one amino acid. Like that it should be. Now how you can prove that it is not overlapping? Again, you need to take a cell-free in vitro system, cell-free system, where you are going to incubate your this codon, and you need to do two experiment, one test, another one control. In the test you need to mutate, like let's see the second U, AUU, the second U you are mutating. Now if it is read by in a overlapping fashion, try to understand. If it is read by overlapping fashion, if you mutate the second U, that means how many will be disturbed? First one, second one, third, all the three will be disturbed. So 3 different amino acid we should get. But if it is read by non-overlapping fashion, then only one amino acid should get disturbed. In reality, when the protein they found that only one amino acid get disturbed, not the 3. So therefore they have come to a conclusion that codon is, we read it by non-overlapping fashion. Now we'll start with deciphering the code. To understand that thing, we need to know a few scientists and their experiment and how they have concluded from their experiment. Okay, we need to know Marshall Nirenberg and Heinrich Matthey. They have done this experiment in National Institute of Health, NIH, USA, used a precise of logic and logical series of experiment to crack the code. So what we knew at this time, because Francis Crick 1961 he mentioned that it is a triplet. Now who is coding for which amino acid, that need to be deciphered. Understood? What need to be deciphered? Which triplet is coding for which amino acid, that need to be determined. So they were among the first to characterize the specific coding sequence. This is the combinations, universal nature. Now, which was made possible by allowed protein synthesis in vitro. Remember, what is the meaning of that? Allowed protein synthesis in vitro, that means cell-free system. Then synthesizing RNA strand in vitro. Now, as I mentioned, you can synthetically also synthesize RNA, mRNA with the help of polynucleotide phosphorylase. So remember this enzyme, polynucleotide phosphorylase. This enzyme it is isolated from Azotobacter. It doesn't need any template. So whatever you are going to give the nucleotide, because it's RNA, so you'll be giving the nucleotide based on the occurrence of this nucleotide. It will just polymerize and give you a synthetically prepared RNA strand, which can be prepared in vitro. So with the help of polynucleotide phosphorylase. So what Marshall Nirenberg and Heinrich J. Matthews experiment? They set up 20 test tubes experiment, each with a different amino acid. So imagine 20 test tube. In each, one amino acid is radioactively labeled, other 19 are cold. E. coli bacterial cytoplasm was added to each test tube, that is the cell-free extract. How they developed the cell-free extract? They treated E. coli cells with alumina powder or beads of glass beads also. That will remove the cell membrane, and then they centrifuge that thing, and then they took the soup. Okay, and they destroy the indigenous nucleic acid with the treatment of DNAs. So first, what they have taken, 20 test tube. In each test tube, one radioactive amino acid and other 19 are cold. Then artificially synthesized mRNA with codon UUU only was placed in each test tube. That means they have synthesized with the help of polynucleotide phosphorylase a synthetically RNA which is having only U template. Then analyzed each test tube to find out which one contains amino acid bound in the chain. That means which will be giving the amino acid. How they will detect? Because one amino acid they have taken radioactive level. If that test tube, that amino acid is recognizing UUU, that polypeptide, that means corresponding amino acid will be also linked. That polypeptide also will be labeled. Understood? Now here see what they have done. They use UUU, uracil nucleotide, polynucleotide phosphorylase. What they have synthesized? They have synthesized this kind of poly-U homopolymer. Like this tube, you should imagine 20 tubes. In one tube, one amino acid radio label. Let assume one amino acid, here phenylalanine radio label. All 19 amino acids are cold. Now we incubate with this thing, with the cell extract, cell-free system, cell extract. Okay. Then they precipitate this whole mixture by adding TCA, trichloroacetic acid. Then they take the precipitate. So protein, if there is any protein synthesis, that will precipitate. And how we are going to check that whether the precipitation is really a protein and really what is the sequence? They have done the sequencing, and also by being a scintillation count, that because that amino acid is labeled. While doing that, what they have concluded that triple U is code for phenylalanine. So what they have found, the tube where they have taken, the test tube where they have taken phenylalanine radio label and all the other amino acid cold, in that tube when they precipitate with the TCA, that protein, when they do this filtration and all these things, and then they found the radioactivity, they found a radio label phenylalanine also attached to each other. So polypeptide, they can find it which is having phenylalanine which are radio labeled with C14 carbon. One question you may ask me, that all like this tube, there are other tubes are also there. In that other tube, let's say now alanine is radiolabel, but all the other 19 amino acids are non-label. In that case also phenylalanine is there. That phenylalanine also will interact and form a polypeptide? Yes, but we are unable to detect. You know why? Because we are detecting by an radioactive detection method. So in that tube, our radioactive that detection cannot recognize the peptide. By doing experiment this method, he first deciphered that UUU actually code for phenylalanine. If it is UUU, then it is a a peptide bond will be formed by using phenylalanine amino acid. Like that, immediately they synthesize triple like A, poly A homopolymer, then the C homopolymer, then G homopolymer. What their observation was, triple A code for lysine, triple C code for proline, but they were unable that time to synthesize a poly G homopolymer of G, because it's forming a tetramer, because there's an interaction between the strands and it becomes tetramer. So they are unable to decipher triple G codes for what. So this is the first experiment. By doing this experiment, Nirenberg and Matthey prove that triple U codes for phenylalanine, like triple A codes for lysine and triple C code for proline. I hope you understood. Please ask me question in case there is any issues. Thank you very much.